we've been finding some ways in order to get the community involved with the podcast as well. So I know I put out a few things on Twitter just to try to get some feedback. We did get some feedback. I basically just asked what's everyone's thoughts and feelings on Tony Hawk Pro Skater as a series as a whole. And we got a couple of replies. Hi everybody, and welcome to High Scores, High Stakes Game of the Month Club for July 2025. I am your host as always, Mr. Lova Lova, and with me is my co-host.
And it's me, kick flipping into existence. It's Tomahawk. How are we doing, Lova?
Oh, good. I'm doing very, very, very well indeed, because this Game of the Month is an absolute banger. But before we tell everyone what it is, because everyone's read the description of this podcast episode, they know what it's about. Let's do a little bit of housekeeping. Let's tell everyone who this could be their first episode. So let's tell everyone what High Scores High Stakes is all about, and more importantly, what High Scores High Stakes Game of the Month Club is all about. Whilst we're in season, High Scores, High Stakes is a competitive PlayStation podcast where myself, Tomahawk, and our other host, Cardinal Smith, compete against one another in a PlayStation Gaming Challenge League. Every week we pick a game and we compete in a challenge in that game. The winner of the challenge gets 3 points, second place gets 2 points, third place gets 1 point. Whoever is top of the league after 12 weeks wins the highly sought after, highly desirable, available on fourthwall.com/high scores high stakes, the High Scores High Stakes Cup. That is what we do for 3 Mondays out of the 4 every single month. This is the last Monday of the month, which means it is Game of the Month Club time. And Game of the Month Club is where we choose a game to play throughout the month, and then we come back here and we deep dive review the life out of it, and then we place it on the patented, not like any other tier list, the High Scores High Stakes tier list. The Game of the Month for July is, of course, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2, which is just an absolutely banging game. Spoiler alert! I love it.
Oh yeah, no, it's amazing, and the synergy, the tie-in is that 3+4 has been on the market and available for the last week or so now. At this point,
I think it's 2 weeks. It's also a banger, so everyone go out and buy it. Don't let
if there's any consumer advice there, it's go buy 3 and 4. And go buy 1 and 2 as well.
Buy both of them.
Buy all of them.
Buy both of them, because they're both great games. Don't let the Tony Hawk 3+4 soundtrack thing put you off, because you will not notice it the vast majority of the time, and the new songs are absolute bangers. But let's keep this to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2, which is, of course, a remake of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, which originally released a long time ago now, Tomahawk, 26 years ago for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 25 years ago for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. They were both PlayStation 1 games, although they appeared in pretty much every console available at the time, which is a lovely segue into me asking you, Tomahawk, what is your history with the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater series?
Not an awful lot. This is one of those ones that we've played them. I think I played definitely 1, 2, and 3. That much I can confirm in its historical and in its remake purposes as well. This was always one that we always sort of rely on a friend, a neighbor, a cousin who had a copy or had the demo. I specifically remember the demo disc of Tony Hawk 1 and playing the warehouse flat out constantly.
I remember that demo very well indeed as well.
And then Part 2, that was the one I think by the time it had come into the UK market and it took off, Tony Hawk 2 was the most anticipated title, obviously at the time. And everyone who had a PlayStation 1 in our friend circles all had it. We always would have gone around to the houses, the multiple controllers, and just had multiplayers of score attacks and horse and the whole hog. So this was very much my party game growing up.
Yep.
This is one that we had. My cousin brought a PlayStation down, and I have a story for this later on. I'm not gonna tease it too soon. I have a lovely story about Tony Hawk, and this will sit forever and a day in my heart. And then, of course, we picked up the 1 and 2 remakes in I think I picked mine up in around 2020, not long after it had launched.
Yep.
Man, what a game! Like, I know it's not just a case of slapping up res onto it. This was like from the ground up rebuilt and everything. It's just gorgeous. It's just perfect and capitalized and yeah, reinvigorated the franchise. I think after 5 was a bit of a stinker.
Oh, 5. What a game. I have a good story about 5 as well. I'll get into that when I go through my history of Tony Hawk's. My history of Tony Hawk's is long, very long indeed. I knew who Tony Hawk was prior to the release of this game because I don't know if you remember this, Tomahawk. You might not, but the X Games in the late 90s was massive and used to get shown. I want to say it was on Eurosport.
Right.
I don't know why I was shown on Eurosport because it was an American thing, but if memory serves me, the
Yeah,
X Games were always
Eurosport.
shown on Eurosport.
I think it's one of them things because it's like a French thing and they must have some sort of broadcast rights or something for it. Yeah, I remember Eurosport very fondly.
Yeah, and I remember watching the X Games. So when it was announced that Tony Hawk was going to be making a game, I was very excited. I was like, "Oh, okay, I know that guy. That guy's the skateboard guy." And then the demo came with the official PlayStation magazine, and it was, of course, the warehouse demo. And I remember playing that demo. I I do not know for how long, but I would make an estimate. We are talking hundreds of hours on that demo, and then it released. And I think there was like a month's difference in the release dates between America and here.
Right. Okay.
And growing growing up, we had a video game shop that wasn't a video game shop. It was a shop that sold video games. I think I've talked about this shop
It's
before.
not your
This
Roman
podcast.
bus. It's not your like weird
No,
Roman
no, no,
bus
no, no, no,
rental
no.
van, is it?
It was just one of those junk shops. You know, every supermarket had them. Every shopping center had them in the 90s. So they sold all sorts of random stuff. But he started selling PlayStation 1 games and he marketed them
Big
as
market, yeah.
imported games. And of course, I was in there one day with my mom. There's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater before it came out in the UK. And I was like, let's go, let's buy this. So I bought it. And then, yeah, that was the only game I played for the rest of that year from September right through to, I don't know
Class.
when. I honestly don't know when, but I was the same as you. It was pitting the PlayStation, never moved from it. Me and Mr. John Sherry used to spend an ungodly amount of time playing split screen horse. And like there was that other game mode on it where you did a trick and the other person had to try to beat your score and all that there sort of business.
Yeah, yeah.
We played an absolute ton of it. I don't think there is a game on my PlayStation 1 I played quite as much as Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, but it was outstanding. Well, of course, over here it was called Tony Hawk Skateboarding because they were unsure we would know who Tony Hawk was. And then, yeah, the next year, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 came out. I got it in the same place. And it was amazing. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 was amazing. And again, it was another game I put hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours. And then Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, I didn't play when it released, believe it or not.
Okay.
I played it afterwards. I did not own a PlayStation 2 until late on the PlayStation 2 lifespan. I was a GameCube and Xbox owner, but my friend owned a PlayStation 2. And we used to spend a lot of time in his house playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 is probably the first game I have ever done the Mr. Level of a thing of double dipping. I bought it on the GameCube. I bought it on the Xbox, and then when I got a PlayStation, I bought it on the PlayStation as well. And then Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 came out. I played a little bit of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4, but Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 was 2002, I think, and that was round about the time when I sort of kind of fell out of gaming a little bit.
Okay,
I wasn't spending as much time playing the PlayStation and stuff, but out of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1, 2, 3, and 4, I say when they released, I put about 1,000 hours into. It was a lot of time spent.
Yeah.
And then the series sort of diverted off into Underground and Project 8 and American Wasteland.
Like extreme sport. They like took the extreme sports side of things and they like ram with it. I was funny enough, just in prep for this, like Tony Hawk Underground has like crept in to all my videos and stuff now, and it's like, yeah, it just got to an air of unrealistic, I suppose.
I mean, Tony Hawk was always unrealistic. It was always arcade fun, but I think what changed between Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 and you can see it creeping in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, whereas the absurd like cut scenes where the ship level always reminds me where you wreck the thing and then the crew member gets flinged into the sea, and like they were always really funny. And you had the thin guy in Tony Hawk's 3. Tony Hawk's 4 had more of the same, but if I remember correctly, Bam Margera was a bigger character in Tony Hawk 4, and then it lent pure into the jackass thing.
Okay.
Where it was
like the stunt side of
absurd, yeah.
Okay.
And I didn't really enjoy Tony Hawk's Underground. I know that's sacrilegious to Tony Hawk's fandom, but I vastly preferred the Pro Skater series to the Underground. But the Pro Skater series took a massive hiatus between 4 and 5. When they announced 5, I think in 2015, I think it was, I pre-ordered that. I pre-ordered that game digitally on PlayStation, which everyone knows it is you must pay now, no refunds ever. And that game came out and it was a broken, bloody mess. And I have never been more disappointed in a video game than what I was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5.
I'm just looking because we have the Metacritic scores up for these. Do you know what Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5 got on a Metacritic scale if we had to put a guess to it?
A 32.
It's exactly 32.
Yes! Do you want to know what? Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5 is a mess. It's an absolute mess, but some of the levels on it are absolutely brilliant. But they all released post content.
But in patchwork,
32%. That's all you need to know. I've never been more disappointed in a video game than what I was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5. And then when they announced 1 and plus 2, I was day one. And then when they announced 3 plus 4, I was day one.
That's really
played
funny,
a lot
though.
of Tony Hawk's.
It's funny you should say that you like pre-ordered in day 1 plus 2, considering like how bad 5 was. You still had that faith that 1 and 2 was gonna lure you back in, like sink the hooks back in and all that good stuff.
I think what got me was Tony Hawk's 1 and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 were so good, and all the groundwork had been done. It's literally just make it look better and give it good physics. Plus, it was made by Vicarious Visions. Before they were absorbed into Call of Duty land, they were outstanding as a developer. They're outstanding.
No faults there, no.
But yeah, no, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and Mr. Love have a long and storied history. It is one of those games that had a profound impact on my life. We'll surely talk about this throughout the episode when we're reviewing 1 plus 2, but it was the game that made me buy a skateboard. I was never good, before anyone asks.
I don't think anyone was good, to be honest.
I was never good, but I spent a lot of time on a skateboard when I was younger, and it obviously shaped my musical taste as well, because the one thing about these games is the soundtrack are always amazing.
So good as well. And I mean, it stands to reason this was your season 4 Champion's Choice.
It was, yeah.
And I think if there was ever a lava type game, it was that speed run of the warehouse, which haunts me. I still play it, to be fair. I still kind of go in and go, I can beat that score, no problem. I still haven't.
Yeah, it's a good score.
It was a very good score. Do go and check that episode out. It was bloody fantastic.
It is a good score. We'll link it at the bottom in the description of this podcast. So we'll link to the challenge episode. It is a good one. It says speed run, all
objectives
goals,
and all scores. Yeah, of the warehouse.
All goals,
level.
speed run of the warehouse. Fastest wins. It's a good episode and it's a really good challenge. But yes, let's get into this discussion about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 plus 2, which came out, I think, was it PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC? And it released on September the 4th, 2020, just pre-pandemic.
Yeah, that is exactly right there. It was one of those games, landed every platform, and I think it was just Nostalgia City. I think this is one that was the whole point. It was like, I think they did it in the reveal trailers. They kind of showed you the PS1 graphics and then kind of blended them into PS4 at the time, and then just basically went, do you remember how good you had it? Well, you're going to get it again, but in HD.
Let's go. Yeah.
And there wasn't much marketing for it. It was basically just a case of, look what we're doing. Here's when it's coming out.
Yeah.
You'll buy it.
You're buying it. So just give us your wallets and shut up. But let's get into the deep dive review here. Let's get going to that now, Tomahawk. Okay, Tomahawk, let's get into this. Let's talk about Vicarious Visions, Tony Hawk 1 plus 2. The way we do this is the same way we're going to every time. We always open up with the story of the development of this game. So I think there's no better place to start with than what actually made this game come about. Because as you have mentioned, and I've mentioned, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5 came out in October 2015 on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. And it came out on a very specific date. And that date, if memory serves me right, was the 28th of October 2015, in and around there. And that date is really important, not because it's nearly Halloween, but because that was the date where Activision's license to use Tony Hawk's name elapsed. So they released this game on the day that that license elapsed, just so they could get a game out. Now, you may remember Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5 had that controversy where its day one patch was 8.5 gigabytes, and it
Wow.
was the entire game. On the disc is one level, and it is the barracks. Everything else is not on that disc. Nothing's on that disc. In fact, the game was the day one patch, and that's because they had to roll it gold to get the discs printed, to get it on shop shelves, but they were actually still working away on the game in the background.
Jesus.
It was a mess, and Tony Hawk's 5 screams this game was a mess and was rushed to release. But Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 plus 2 is the exact opposite of that. Vicarious Visions. This is a weird one. So Vicarious Visions have been working on this game for, I think it was a year beforehand, and they started where every remaster or remake should start. They went to Neversoft and said, do you still have the code for the original Tony Hawk games? And they said yes. And they're like, give us access to it because we want to make sure this thing is as faithful
You have its
as...
soul, yeah.
And Neversoft like, yeah, there you go, there's the source code. And they built on the source code into Unreal Engine 4, and they had like a simple thing in mind: modernize this game, but modernize it to a point that everyone's memory was off the original game, make it look and play the way people think that it looked and played.
Yeah, that's it. That's how you want it.
And that's exactly what they did. It says, when the thing I was reading about the development of this, they said that the hardest thing about this game was the physics engine, because obviously this was made... Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 was originally made on the Apocalypse engine, which, if people don't know what Apocalypse was, it was a third-person top-down shooter starring Bruce Willis in the PlayStation 1. So the physics were a wee bit weird and weren't designed for this game at all, or weren't designed for this style of game. So they said the hardest thing to do was the physics. I would believe it, because there was a remake of Tony Hawk on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD, awful physics, made by Robomoto. Awful physics, whereas this game feels brilliant because
Super
of the work,
organic, yeah.
because
Really
of the work,
does.
because of the work Vicarious Visions put into it, and that's really it. I mean, the development for this seemed to be really, really, really smooth. So smooth, in fact, that they didn't announce this game until May 2020, and it came out in October. That's
incredible. They just kind of like let this go under the radar completely and let it, like, there's no pressure if you're just working on it without this like 18-month release window, or like this this release date in mind, with everyone building, I suppose, anticipating it. Then if you give them like 4 months basically,
4 months, you pay pretty much,
that the game's done at that point, really.
Oh yeah, and they knew it was good. They knew it was good.
Then all you have to do is market the life out of it and get the nostalgia flowing. And yeah, they did an absolute smashing job with it. Though I vaguely remember, just sort of casting back to the what's the word I want? The actual like making of even the original Tony Hawk. Like, I'm trying to like figure out how they got Tony Hawk on board for this, and how you sell a skateboarding game way back in the day, like, as well, because I vaguely remember you saying about this, but I think it's just gone into the back of my brain here. Like, in 1999, how do you then go, we're going to make a skateboarding game and you're going to be the figurehead for it? Like, how does that come about?
Okay, so you're probably too young to remember this. In the mid to late 90s, extreme sports were everywhere. The biggest extreme sport on the planet in 1999 was rollerblading. or Aggressive
Okay.
Inline, as they rebranded it. Um,
Lord
but
above.
but I know that this game came about because there was the team at Neversoft were into skateboarding and they liked skateboarding, and they said that they had never played a video game that captured the essence of skateboarding. And they built a demo on the Armageddon engine and pitched it to Activision, saying this is what we want to make. We think it has potential to be a good seller. It probably won't be
Okay.
temple, but it will sell units and it will be good. And they're like, yeah, make a proof of concept and we'll talk about it. So the proof of concept for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 back in the day from Neversoft was, the mall level and downhill jam. It
Yeah,
was
yeah,
all
yeah.
meant to be downhill racing.
Oh, that's
That was the
cool.
concept
Like
of the
the actual
game.
core idea of it. Okay, that's interesting.
But I think that was kind of vetoed when they realized that the engine could do so much more than
Yeah, okay.
just straight races. And so I think I vaguely remember reading an article where someone said they didn't feel that racing downhill was the essence of skateboarding, and they wanted to see how far they could push it. Once they got the sort of gameplay loop down of skating lines and challenges and all this here sort of business, then they went back into Activision and said we need a name.
Right,
And I
okay.
think it was someone at Activision who was like, well, I know someone who organizes X Games and they can put us in contact with this guy called Tony Hawk. And Tony Hawk in 1999 he was the most famous skateboarder, but you're talking, he was famous for a skateboarder. He wasn't a household name at all.
Ah, okay, yeah. In
And
that
and they
circle.
give him some money up front, but they give him a contractual deal for a percentage of the profits of the game. So he would get a percentage from every unit sold,
Okay.
and that's how they got him on board. But he wanted to be like a consultant. He didn't just want to be, oh yeah, here's my name. He wanted to have input into it. So he's the one that organized all the pros. He is the one that came up with the idea of giving the pros like a handful of songs each that they could include in the game. He was the one who sort of talked about the physics. He talked about this. You have to be able to do this, and it's a funny story because one of the most iconic moves in the game is the Tony Hawk 900.
Yeah.
That was not going to be in the game because he hadn't done it. But in the Summer X Games in July 1999, he successfully
You
did a
nailed it. Yeah.
900, and they're like, this has to be in the game, and they quickly threw in the 900 trick.
Oh wow,
But
okay.
yeah, but I was listening to an interview with him. I think I was watching that documentary of him Until the Wheels Fall Off. I think it's called Tony Hawk Until the Wheels Come
Yeah,
Off.
yeah.
And he said, when he met with the head of Neversoft, they met at a cafe. He said, he need to talk to you. And he was like, yeah, they had their food. And he's like, here's your pay for Tony Hawk Pro Skater. And he was expecting like 40 or 50,000 to hand him a check for 4 million because that's how much it sold. It was one of the best selling games in 1999.
Oh
It was
yeah,
probably,
yeah. Of course. Like I mean, I'm looking at 92 on Metacritic. Like so, this fully just I think changed the game of sports games and that extreme sports like avenue. That's
100%.
that's a foothold in, and obviously you kind of get like the Dave Mirra series as well, kind of spawned from this, and then you get your SSXs and all that kind of stuff. Everything. So a lot
Yeah.
can like you've this lovely nexus point and a gateway for extreme sports in gaming now.
Yeah, it's really funny because there was so many extreme sports titles. Like all the major publishers had like extreme sports subsidiaries. So EA had big, Activision. I can't remember what they called theirs, but they had like an extreme sports brand where they had like Tony Hawk's Pro Skateboarder. They had their BMX game. It wasn't Matt Hoffman. It was the other guy whose name escapes me every single time when I talk about it. They had this surfer, Kelly Slater, surfing, and they had the snowboarding game and a wakeboarding game. No one remembers the wakeboarding game, but like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater changed
Oh, well.
skateboarding games and changed games in its entirety. Like it made the blueprint of what a skateboarding game is or what an extreme sport game was. And it did a lot of stuff. It was addictive for those who have never played Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Number one, what have you been doing with your life? You're missing out on some of the best games ever made. For those, if you don't know what it is effectively an arcade high score challenge game where you are dropped into levels. You're given a 2-minute time limit, and you have to skate about the level, get high scores, and collect skate letters, hidden tapes, stat points to upgrade your skater. And there's level specific missions as well, like smash the crates or ride
Like
through
grind certain
shopping
items and stuff
mall
like that as
military
well,
business.
smash windows, that kind of stuff. Like, so it's just petty vandalism is what it is. It's crime. Do crime and get
The video
scored for
game.
it.
But that's what it is. It is so addictive. It is so addictive. I think I've talked about this beforehand, and it might have been on the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater Challenge episode, where Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, all of them, I don't think there's ever been a game that has adopted and just captured the spirit of the moment and captured a culture of a sport or a time quite as good as Tony Hawk's Pro Skater has as a series. It just is. You put that disc up in your PlayStation 1 and it is so 1999, and it is like unapologetically 1999. It is just, and I mean that in the most positive way that I can say.
Oh,
That
yeah,
it
yeah.
is a huge positive for the game. The music screams 1999. Just everything about it is 1999, and it influenced me as a younger man. I've no doubt in my mind Tony Hawk's Pro Skater inspired the next generation of skateboarders.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I'm even like we'll touch on the soundtrack and the music and stuff, but it does have this like knock on effect. So like as we're like particularly me who doesn't play these games maybe until a couple of years, good few years out of like your cycle playing the game, and then I'm getting that past the torch moment, and then I'm going, oh, I'm listening to like Rage Against the Machine, Papa Roach, all those ones who like end up getting their moment in this game, in this soundtrack, and I'm like, I need to check them out. I need to find that out. And then you go into like HMV, you're going to like your quote unquote record shops, and
Yes.
you're like it's this this capitalist engine that keeps running because like one thing has like influenced another, which has influenced another decision that you make, and it's fantastic.
It's so good. I just don't think Tony Hawk's Pro Skater gets the recognition it gets for enhancing and making a culture household as much as Tony Hawk's Pro Skater made skateboarding. Skateboarding became massive, and I think Tony Hawk's Pro Skater as a series played a huge role in it. I think I heard somewhere in 1999 there was 29.5 million rollerbladers. There was 4.5 million skateboarders worldwide. And I think by 2007, the number of rollerbladers had shrank to about 4.5 million, and the number of skateboarders rose to about 30. So they role
Crazy
switched
time.
like massively, and it's all. I think it's a lot to do with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, but that's enough of Tony Hawk as a cultural sort of time capsule, because it is. Let's
That's
talk
it,
about Tony Hawk's 1+2, which is not trying to capture a culture of 1999. It is trying to bring the culture from 1999 into the year 2020, which is a completely different time. There's things you're not going to get away with in 2020, but you got away with in 1999. But I still think Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2. I think we talked about this in one of our previous episodes. It might have been Tomb Raider, where we said this is the correct way of remastering or remaking a game. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 is the correct way, and it should be the blueprint for how you remake a game. You take everything from it, you quality of life improve it, you take away the things that didn't work, and you put in the things that did work. And if there's later games in the series, you cherry
pick those elements. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
like you can get essences of like Tony Hawk 3 that have been backtracked into 1 and 2.
Yes.
And like the game runs pretty like smooth as a full experience. Like when that timer hits like starts 2 minutes, that is a pretty seamless, experience, that seamless run all the time. Yeah. Everything feels pretty like tight, as every game should be, and it does this amazing thing. It captures that 90s like late 90s nostalgia, but also then, as you say, it's so relevant still to this, like, it gives you this sense of like 2020 to 2025 relevancy, and you're like, good, I need more of this. I'm not just gonna, it's not a throwaway purchase. Like, you're putting hundreds of hours back into this.
I have done, yeah. I'm not going to lie. I've been playing Tony Hawk's 3 plus 4. Last night I downloaded Tony Hawk's 1 plus 2. So I'm going to be playing Tony Hawk's for the foreseeable future. But no, what I like the most about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 plus 2 is it plays exactly the way I remember Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 playing, but that is a false memory because I played Tony Hawk 1 and Tony Hawk's 2 on PlayStation 1 in preparation for this episode on Sunday night. They are choppy. Like they run at 30 frames per second, but I don't know if it's a locked 30 frames. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 on PlayStation 1 is definitely not locked to 30 frames. It can get choppy. The thing that stood out about me about the two games, the biggest difference between the two games is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1's a lot more unnatural. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 uses much more natural things to launch you in the air. So there's ramps there, but there's curbs that are ramps where Tony Hawk's Skater 1 does not have that. Everything is an unnatural ramp. But they take all those things that really worked. What I love about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 plus 2 is they wanted to make those two games, and they did it. They took all the levels, they took all the moves, and then they're like, okay, but this franchise has came on so much since 2000. What do we need to add to make this feel modern? And what they did was they went into Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and they took the revert and they took acid drops and they took that from Tony Hawk's 3 and put it into Tony Hawk's 1 plus 2. And then they went into Tony Hawk 4. And Tony Hawk 4 had it had spine transfers, and they're like, that'll do us lovely. Take that and put that into Tony Hawk's 1 plus 2. So all of a sudden you had Tony Hawk's 1 and 2 with all the moves from Tony Hawk's 1 plus 2, 1 and 2, and then all the additional improvements made in Tony Hawk's 3 and 4. And all of a sudden you have this perfect amalgamation of the original 4 games in 2020 with much updated graphics, way better performance, and just incredible. Like it's just incredible gaming experience. This episode is gonna be an hour of me gushing about Tony Hawk's 1 plus 2.
Absolutely.
I think it's incredible. So I do.
Yeah, I'm in this funny situation because I've been playing it quite extensively to actually get my prep and talk about the levels and some of the designs and stuff like that. I exclusively remember only ever playing Tony Hawk in a multiplayer capacity. So we had the levels, but my actual knowledge of objectives and key items to collect is pretty much non-existent until the last couple of weeks as I've been playing through the career mode and doing the competitions and I'm stuck in New York at the minute trying to do certain objectives there, and I'm just I'm scratching my head going, how are people just doing this effortlessly?
Yeah.
Or is it a case of grind and grind and grind these levels for hours at a time in the hope that you might do 2 objectives back to back?
I mean, it's a funny one. I think of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Obviously, it's an extreme sports game, but I have the viewpoint that Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is actually an extreme sports themed platformer in small sandbox levels, kind of like Banjo-Kazooie, that one's for you, Andy Games, or like Mario 64, that kind of 3D platformer where the time limit is it's a really interesting game mechanic. I think that they've done that for time pressure on the player to make you sort of interact with the game, but I think a part of that 2 minutes time limit is because the PlayStation 1's hardware limitations. It wasn't able to play full songs. So 2 minutes of each song frees up space for more songs.
Okay, yeah,
that makes sense.
That does make perfect sense, son.
The way I treat Tony Hawk Pro Skater is every time I jump into a new level, I use my first 2 minutes just to skate around and try to scope where everything is, where the hidden tape is, where the skate is, where all the the things you have to collect in the level are. What you'll find with Tony Hawk's is an absolute masterclass in how to design a level. It is designed around skating culture 100%, and skating culture is all about finding the skating lines. Every item you have to collect is in a skating line. All the game wants you to do.
It's not just randomly placed.
Randomly placed.
It is just that meticulously thought of
Yeah,
and where this needs to go. Yeah.
yeah. Every single objective in that game, if it is smash 5 boxes, there is one line you can take in order to smash those 5 boxes. If it is skate's always in a line. Another addition they added from Tony Hawk's 4 in here was the combo line, get the combo in one combo type thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Not their sort of business, but no, it's an absolute masterclass in making the player learn the levels, make the player find the lines, and then letting the player interpret those lines any way they want. It, for me personally, if I had a 2 minute run and I only got like one of the level goals, I'd be really disappointed. I'd be
Yeah.
really disappointed. I like pushing myself and saying, how many of these can I get in 1 2 minute? And Tony Hawk's 1 and 2 are perfect for it because the levels are way smaller than what they are in 3 and 4. And it's a lot
Yeah.
easier. And it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to see what the developers want you to do. And the developers are really, really good at encouraging you. So I spend every time I jump in a new level, if I'm really stuck with something, take 2 minutes, skate around, and try to find the developer intended route to get where you want to go. And then your next 2 minutes then is practice that route, and then hopefully you'll practice it
Yeah.
enough
No,
and
that
get
makes
what you're
sense.
after.
I like
Which
that.
is how
That's
I play
very
it.
clear, concise. That has like rhythm, and you know what you're tackling. I kind of adopt the psychotic. It is psychotic, and I will fully admit it. I will tend to in the first run just try and go first objective and work my way down. And the first couple of objectives tend to be the score based ones.
Yeah.
So
They're always
what I'll
score.
do is I will just spam and grind and manual and chain my way around the entire level. And if I'm feeling daring, I will then put the head on a swivel and go, right, that's there, that's there, that's there.
Yes. Yeah.
Which
I feel like
never
we have to. I
never
feel like we
ends
have
well.
to explain this to listeners who've never played this. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 is all about high scores. The three main challenges every level is the pro score, the high score, pro score, 6 score. And they get incrementally higher and higher the further you go in the game. But to get those, especially in the later levels, you have to combo, which is the control scheme for this is such a beautifully designed control scheme. All your face buttons will do something corresponding with the ball, but with the board. X jumps, square is your flip tricks, triangle is your grind trick, and circle is your grab tricks. L1, R1 will make you spin in that direction on a ramp, and LT and R2 are modifications to tricks. And there is a hidden mechanic in Tony Hawk's 1 plus 2, which was introduced in Tony Hawk's 3. And the hidden mechanic is there are some tricks that require you to double tap the face button.
Oh dear.
So
I didn't know
keep that
that.
in mind as well. But the whole goal of Tony Hawk is to find the sickest skating line and trick on it whilst comboing. Your combo ends when your board touches the ground and you're no longer doing a trick. Now you can extend all these combos. I like starting my combos in a half pipe or a quarter pipe, doing a grab and a flip trick, and then landing into a manual, and then going into a grind, and then coming out the grind, going into a manual, doing maybe a special manual, special grinds, and then get to an area where there is an infinite loop of grinding, and then just grind.
The warehouse is a really good one for
Beautiful.
that, especially just given that I'm trying to remember the speed run route as well. So the way you do it is you basically turn back on yourself. You go up the half pipe, you grab your first like letter, you smash a box, you manual your way down the big ramp, then you project yourself across the half pipe, across the secret tape, manual on the secret tape, smash the box, manual there into a grinder across the entire half pipe on the opposite side of the map. Then you get the long grind there. Then you do the transfers over. You can do that entire run and never break a combo if you are proficient enough in it. I think I have done it in about 45 seconds now. I think that was the last score I posted post challenge. And I was just like, I don't think I'll ever do better than that. But like the game, like in a tight loop like that, and when you really, really grind down where everything is, and you are super, super precision on it, then and also you can do a bit of course manipulation as well. Like if you want to hit a harsh corner, like a harsh 90-degree turn, you can kind of hit yourself off the environment, and you'll point to the direction of like that you're facing basically, and it'll do it quite tidily. But there are many occasions where you can do the entire loop and every objective on one trick or one combination of tricks, at least anyway.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, relying on one combo with tricks for the 6 score, especially later on. Every time, the first time you do a trick, you will score maximum points for it. Every time you repeat a trick, you will
Oh
lose
yeah, and
more
you
and
lose the
more and
multiplier and
more.
stuff. The game like praises
Punishes you.
variety and
Yeah.
punishes. It's the same way as like just for our WWE runs as well. You can kind of see when the same move sets are being done, and you get penalized, and your star rating goes up but slower. So you're penalized for lack of variety. Yeah.
Yes, there's just so much to this game. The scoring system, I'm convinced, is inspired by the X game scoring system, which punishes repetition of moves. So it
Mm-hmm.
does. So you have to keep everything fresh. But no, this game is just so expertly designed. There's so many mechanics to it, and they stack on top of one another. And the game will demand that you get proficient at all of them. At the start of the game, it's a really funny sort of difficulty curve in Tony Hawk. it it's not a particularly difficult game to complete. To finish, to see the end credits is easy. Anyone can do it, I think.
Yeah.
But to get the secrets at the end of the game, like Officer Dick and all that there sort of business, is really challenging because you have to collect everything on every level. You have to find, in Tony Hawk's 1 plus 2, you have to find the alien plushies as well. There's one per level, and some of them are
Oh, okay.
fiendishly difficult to find. They are hidden in really tough to reach spots,
Okay. Okay. But
and
this is
that
it.
sort of stuff.
It's the reward for the grind then in this instance, because you can just do the bare minimum objectives, unlock the next track, do the bare minimum, as you say, just to get to end credits as such. But I think in games like this, the fun is in the grind. The fun is finding out where all these little nooks and crannies are, and everything is being stored, and
Yeah,
that figuring out what the best variation is.
yeah, yeah. You can play this game any way you want. You can just play it to see the end credits.
Oh, I
You can play it to
replayability is rife.
100% it.
Yeah.
If you want 100% it, it is difficult because I think every game is about 20% gaps. So you have to 100% the game, you have to hit every single gap in the game. And that is extremely difficult in some occasions and time consuming. But no, it's just this game is so beautifully designed from the ground up by Neversoft, and it's so beautifully remade by Vicarious Visions. They had a real reverence for this game, and we talked about Tony Hawk on the PlayStation 1 looking rough. This game took the source code and rebuilt it from the ground up in Unreal Engine 4. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 plus 2 is an absolute stunner. It looks
Yeah.
amazing. And
Absolutely gorgeous. Look.
some points of this game, it's hard to remember how these levels used to look. But when you see a direct comparison between the warehouse in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and the warehouse here, it is night and day. It is night and day different. The layout's exactly the same, all that good stuff, but the way it looks is just radically different.
Oh yeah, it's even the same to say in Tony Hawk 2 when you get to the airplane hangar as well.
Yeah.
It's just I playing that recently, and I'm like, I remember every aspect about this game, and it sort of lingers back to that. I remember it looking that good, and I remember it playing that good, even though I know that that's not the case.
Yes, yes, yes.
And they've done that beautifully just to capture that, and I'm like, I remember, grinding across the helicopter and it taking off. I remember grinding across the propeller and it opening up the additional like half pipe in that secret room as well, getting outside and doing the quarter pipe on the basketball court as well. Just all these little things that they do and how they recapture stuff.
Yep.
But at the same time, when you put the side by sides, obviously 21 or so years between the two of them, I'm looking at that and thinking, yes, absolutely is night and day, but what a job they've done retaining it. Like the soul of the game is still there and it's evident throughout every level, really.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. They've added stuff into the game as well. There's the Neversoft logos which weren't in the original
Oh
game,
yeah, yeah.
and they are fiendish to get. Some of them are really quite difficult to get. Once you know the route, they're simple, but it's sometimes finding that route is really difficult, and it will expect you to do some amazing combos because they want you to engage with the gameplay. Everything in this game is designed to make you engage with the gameplay systems, and all of them. You can't just focus on vert or street skating. You have to be good at both if you want to succeed and get
Oh,
everything in the game. And it's got a lovely sort of difficulty curve. It's easy enough, but as you progress through the game, you pick up these stat points and you can input them into your skater. If memory serves me, you can correct me if I'm wrong in this. Memory for me is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 on the PlayStation. Your stat points were specific for that one skater. So if you wanted to upgrade all your skaters, you had to play through all the levels and get the stat
yeah,
points
yeah.
all the time. Whereas in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 plus 2, you collect the stat points and you upgrade your skater, but it applies to every skater in the roster. Am I right in saying this?
Oh, I don't actually know.
I'm fairly sure that's how it works.
It sounds about right in terms of like a nerf of such in the game, or just easy
It's a
access.
quality of
Yeah,
life thing, yeah,
basically,
because
yeah. It stops you having a 100% the game with every character, which would just become tedious anyway. So I think the stat points are applicable to everybody across the
yeah,
board. Then yeah, no,
yeah.
that makes more sense.
Yeah, it's really good. I like it. I like the change. I do remember playing Tony Hawk's 1, 2, 3 back in the day and completing it with every skater to get their ending video. Once you complete the game with every skater, you get a video of their best bits in a
Okay.
traditional skateboarding style. I do remember doing that, but I do like the idea. That's definitely how it works in Tony Hawk's 3 plus 4. Once you get stat points, it applies to everyone. But no, it's just as you said there. It just takes everything that was good about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1. It retains the heart, retains the soul. It feels like an indie game, even though it was a lot of money to make this game.
Yeah,
A lot of money went into
exactly.
this game. Activision haven't skimped on anything. But all of this praise for the gameplay and the systems would mean nothing if the levels were bad. And I am a great believer that as Tony Hawk is the cover character of this game, absolutely. It's full of great skateboarders. But for me, the real stars of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 are the levels. Like they are so expertly designed. They're so memorable. They are so memorable, and they will all test you in different things, but they're just brilliant. What I'm getting to here, Tom Hawk, is what is your favorite level from Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1? And what is your favorite level from Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2?
I think it's a toss up at the minute for one because I really, really, really love the warehouse. I think that is just for the small, like I would define that as a small map.
Mm-hmm. It is, yeah.
And it's tight. Everything is exactly where it needs to be, and you can just grind it and perfect it and do everything like that. Like treat it like a speed run category. I really like the mall level. We kind of talked about it in the little prelude there about how that downhill racer vibe was originally the whole bones of this game. I love that you can just like do a run and then get to the bottom and you just teleport back up to the top, and then if you're left with enough time you can figure out what you missed and what you do. I think that level is just incredible. Or you can just be, because it's essentially 3 tiers. Like you've got the parking structure, the main mall section, and then the kind of basement area, and you could spend your entire run in any one of those 3 sections. And you get infinitely different playthroughs there. I think probably for me it's my most favorite map. The mall really, really is. I think it's so clever, so designed. It's such a large map by comparison to the warehouse,
the rest of them,
and it tests you in such different ways. Like so, Tony Hawk 2, my favorite map I think has to be the air hangar. I just love it because it's 2 warehouses back to back. You could spend all of your time in one side or the other side and don't have to interact massively with each other.
Yeah. Okay, I was not expecting that. So the 2, well, one opening level and one early sort of game level from Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1. Okay, that's interesting. That's an interesting 2 choices. I also love them all. I don't know if I would say it's my favorite from Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1, but I absolutely love them all. I think my favorite from Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 is Roswell, which is the
Okay.
last level of the game, the last challenge level. What I like about this level is it kind of all the levels in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1, it feels like a bridge between Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and what Tony Hawk Pro Skater
Okay.
2 would become, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I think, even though I've just praised every level in the game for having really good lines, I feel that some of the lines are, whilst they make sense from a game, they don't really make sense from like a skateboarding perspective. If I'm making any sense at all.
Kind of. I see the logic. I've been podcasting with you for like 2 and a bit years now. I kind of know what you're
You
thinking
know what
as
I'm
you
trying to
say
get
it.
to. So like what I'm trying to get across is a lot of levels in Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 especially, the lines are, this is a grinding line, or this is a line for vert tricks and reverts. Roswell's lines start as grinds or start as verts and then go into the other disciplines a lot
Yeah.
more naturally than what the mall does. For example, I think the mall's, as much as I love it, and I really do love them all, it's missing an area for vert tricks. There's nowhere really to do vert at all. I know that's
Yeah.
not the point of the level, but I would like to see a wee bit more variety in it. I think Roswell, it's a lot smaller. It's bigger than the warehouse, smaller than the mall, but it captures a lot of what Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 was going to be. I love Roswell. Plus, it has probably the best sort of hidden Easter egg, which is the alien getting, being autopsied inside and stuff like that, which I think is really funny.
Yeah.
And then my favorite level in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 is that's a tough one because Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 is a great one. Do you want to know what? It's probably Bull Ring.
Okay, that's
It's probably Bull
see,
Ring.
I'm at a bit of a disadvantage when it comes to grinding, like, and figuring out which one is my all-time favorite level, because, as I said, I spent most of my like life cycle playing Tony Hawk in a multiplayer aspect.
Yeah, yep.
So I didn't get as big a deep dive into the bigger levels and the actual like career mode as such to get all the challenges done and stuff. It was always unlocked and we always had the option for it, but because we'd always done it as party games, we never got the deep dive the main levels as much. Like, so I think my well is a lot smaller in that instance. Like, so
Yeah, no, the Bull Ring's a great level. It is in a Bull Ring in Madrid. But what I love about it is the options are available there from the start. There's so many ways you can go, so many things you can do. Plus, it has in the original Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, I think it's also in the remake. When the game starts, it opens with Tony Hawk going around a full circle and like a concrete like circular ramp. That's in the Bull Ring. It's based on a real skate park in somewhere in Spain, and I love that. I just love the aspects of it, taking little things from the real world. Of course, Tony Hawk's, both of them have real life skate parks like Burnside and Tony Hawk 1 and Marseille and Tony Hawk 2. But I think for my money, Bull Ring's probably the best level in Tony Hawk 2. People will fight us, but we want the people to do is comment what is your favorite level in either one of these games.
I will say Marseille gets a big shout out on this one because it's one of the first competition levels that you play, like the actual play 3 heats. And
I think it's the first in Tony Hawk 2,
it's the first in Tony Hawk 2, but it is the one that is like the purest of what is now Olympic skateboarding, I suppose. Like, it's grind spots, half pipes, a bit of everything. It's quite like technically proficient, as opposed to here's an abandoned industrial site, have a butcher's. This one is very like hard. It like very much shows you here's the competitive side. Here's the actual grounded roots of professional skateboarding, and I think it's those are lovely. We touch it's the same for in Tony Hawk 1, and I can't remember what it's called. I think it's Ontario or Calgary or something like that. It's one of it's basically just a warehouse, but you have a couple of grind spots, a half pipe, and it's a little bit
also
bigger.
The first competition level.
They're great because I think that there you can hone in on some of the vert tricks. You can hone in on figuring out transitions, and yes, they're there as competitions, and you do your heats and you win your gold medal at the end of it. But yeah, I think it's a nice time to like hone in on what you've learned in previous levels and hone in these skills and transition points and stuff as well. So they're like lovely little tutorials midway in the game, if that makes sense.
It does. It makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. I think Marseille, if memory serves me right, Marseille has one of the best hidden areas in the entire series. There is a blue tree with a fence plank linked against it. If you skate through that fence plank, the tree falls through the fence and you uncover a hidden fountain level. There's not much
All
in
right.
it, but it's just really cool. I remember finding it by accident being as a kid. Like,
That's
it's
the
just,
best part. That's the best part
yes.
about these games is like accidentally finding this stuff because you didn't have guides. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. You had like phone up hotlines or
I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, I did use a phone helpline to help me with Silent Hill 1, and it cost like £15. My mom went ballistic.
Jesus.
But no, most of the guides came from magazines back in the day.
Ah,
You would buy a
yeah. So
magazine
but you'd
and
be waiting, like it would come release, and you'd maybe get like the snippet in the demo. Like when the demo came, you would have like, oh, here's what to expect. But then you would be waiting for months for them to like review it, or for it to be deep dove, or like walkthroughs. Essentially, you'd be not knowing when it was going to come out, or would it come out basically in tandem with the
I
game
mean,
release? Then,
reviews traditionally in magazines would come out like the
oh yeah,
issue
in
of the month
tandem
of
of
release.
yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't wait months for. You might. What used to annoy me about it was Silent Hill. I had a walkthrough for Silent Hill in a magazine, but because Silent Hill was brand new, it was only a part of the game. So you had to wait for the next month to get the next part. You know, that sort of
Oh,
way.
okay, okay.
That was frustrating. That's why I had to ring the hotline, because it was the piano puzzle. People, if you know, you know. um, but yeah, I rang him once, never again. Let's put it that way. But back on to Tony Hawk. Okay. Tony Hawk is a game of really high highs. Sometimes literally, there is no bigger high in the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater series than the soundtracks. Now, this is probably the only caveat with Tony Hawk's 1 plus 2, and it is the only place where you could raise an issue. I think if you're raising an issue with this, you're insane. But
Yeah.
the original two games, I think between them had something like 38 tracks, in and around 40 songs between the first two games. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 plus 2 has about 60, but the original complement of tracks are not all there. Now, this is an issue with licensing, I presume, and just money to get the song back. I think it's something ridiculous. It's something like 85, 90% of the songs are still here. It's missing 4 or 5 songs from the original game. It doesn't make a blind bit of difference because the new songs in it are great. Like the songs in it are great songs, and I don't think there's a stinker in it. There are moments where I know when I bought this game, I cycled through looking for a specific song. I can't remember what it was now, but it wasn't there.
Okay.
But I was like, oh, that's a shame. But every other song is. Who cares?
Aye,
Do you
that's
know
it.
what
I
I
mean, like
mean?
it's such a great soundtrack, and it's one of them songs. It's one of them soundtracks where I would always have known the song. It's obvious because of now we have the internet and everything is wonderful and accessible, that like you're aware of the artists and stuff like that, and how these games originally probably served as some sort of springboard for them, particularly like to the European markets.
Yes.
And this
Yes,
kind of just
absolutely.
like everything comes in tandem. Like, I mean, I still remember, and I love when I boot up 1+2 and you get the real life like making of, as they're like doing all these like real skateboarders are doing their tricks and they're kind of throwing the
Yep.
camera around at each other, and you just have Guerrilla Radio from Rage Against the Machine just like playing.
Yes.
And I know it like
Yes.
encompasses 1 and 2 really, but I think that's just like, you know, then what you're getting yourself in for. It's this like, it's that new metal sort of, yeah, just that get hyped music basically is the best way to describe it.
That's the way. That's what I used to call it too. Whenever I love Superman, I had never heard of Goldfinger before I played Tony Hawk Pro Skater. I don't think anyone had. You know, we talked about at the start how this changed Tony Hawk's life. It changed their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they were a semi-successful band, and I mean locally successful. They weren't big. They weren't the hip
Like
band.
commercially recognized or nothing like that. Them just to be featured on this, yeah.
Suddenly their songs featured on this, and it explodes, and they are touring around the world on the
But
back
it's
of a video
like,
games. Insane.
yeah, because it turns them essentially into like not a one-hit wonder because like I've heard some of their other stuff off this.
Their song, stuff's great.
They have a very, very good catalog as well. And I did see something quite recently with the 3+4 release that Tony Hawk came out and sang Superman.
Yeah, I saw this. I saw this. Yeah, he loves it.
So
He lives
like
for it.
they know that this game has done an awful lot for them. But it could have easily that been another conversation for somebody else. Like on a slight tangent, this is why the song 1985 of Bowling for Soup is so popular, because it's not actually their song. It's a
Yep.
friend's band of theirs that they said that could they cover it once, and then one thing led to another.
Yeah. The soundtrack for this game is incredible. A couple of standouts for me, and you can do the same. A couple of standouts for me from this game is Police Truck by the Dead Kennedys.
Yeah.
What a song that is. And then Superman, obviously by Goldfinger. I really like Here and Now by the Ernies.
Do you know what? Actually, I was listening to this and I was funny just before record. I was doing the dishes, just house admin, and I just goes to Alexa, just played Tony Hawk soundtrack, and it finished, and then it did this beautiful thing where the playlist finished and it started to play the recommended stuff afterwards. Yes. And I could not tell you now where that line started and where that finished of playlist, the playlist ending and the recommended stars. Everything is so beautifully curated from that soundtrack in this 1+2, however you want to phrase it. Man, the whole way I'm just kind of like, just the head's bopping and it blends so well. Like you've got Superman, you've then got Jerry was a race car driver as well, and then you're going into Power Man 5000, Papa Roach, like from part 2, and then I'm just like a couple of the new songs on the list as well. You've obviously got stuff like Machine Gun Kelly and stuff on the new release and stuff. So Billy Talent, you have a couple of like more fresh and modern things, which I get why they do it. You've got the nostalgia crowd. Now you want to hook in a new audience.
I mean, yeah, I totally get it. This is why I don't think it's a valid complaint for either 1+2 or 3+4. Is Tony Hawk's 1+2 was they were, highlighting bands of the time that were maybe not getting the recognition they deserved. And now what they did in 2020 was they took other bands and acts and artists who were maybe below where they should be and went, you know what, we can elevate you. Let us use your music in the game and we can elevate you again. And it worked to an extent. There's some older bands there. I think it's a really nice mixture between like modern and new, but every single song in this game fits.
Oh yeah.
Like there's not one song in this game you go, oh, that doesn't fit in with what it is. One of my favorite songs in 1+2 is She's Famous Now by the Real Big Fish. Now, Real Big Fish is not a band I've heard of in a very, very, very long time, but what a band they are.
Oh yeah.
I think the soundtrack for this is stellar. Absolutely stellar. I would argue that Tony Hawk's Pro Skater as a series had diminishing returns with the official soundtrack the more games that got made, because Tony Hawk's 1, Tony Hawk's 2 had such a strong OST, and there was no way they can maintain that throughout the number of games they did for this series. Tony Hawk's 3, I think, had a really good soundtrack. Tony Hawk's 4 had a really good soundtrack, but were 3 and 4 on the same level as 1 and 2? Absolutely not.
Yeah, there's a moment where I think we had said earlier that like a lot of the skaters in the roster had all kind of had a say about what songs go into the soundtrack and stuff as well. And I think as the series gets popular, Activision or whoever's making these games that like throughout their life cycle are basically going, well, we have the backing now to go and be able to just curate this ourselves, really. Like, so I think you kind of lose that charm and that sort of what makes the soundtrack so special. And then obviously you get to come back to this. I know you said that 3 and 4 has a slightly different soundtrack. Like some of the songs, the artists are the same, but the songs have been changed. Which is never a bad thing.
The returning songs in 3+4 is a lot worse than what it was in 1+2.
Yeah.
There's, I would say 80% of the songs from 3 and 4 are not here.
Oh, wow.
80%
okay, that's
are
a huge,
not
that's
here.
a huge
It's a
turnover.
huge thing, but it makes sense, because I do know 1+2 and 3+4, the skaters were allowed to nominate songs. This was a game series that I have no doubt in my mind had to beg for songs, and that's why we got a lot of like smaller bands like Goldfinger, Suicidal Tendencies, and all this here business appearing in it
Yeah.
because their music was cheap. I've no doubt in my mind that that played a part in it, and then it
Oh,
would have
yeah, yeah.
it would have got to a point where record labels were falling over themselves. Please take our music and put it into your game, and it was a role reversal and just opened the doors for bigger acts, bigger sounds. But the soundtrack here is incredible. We can't move on from the soundtrack without talking about one of the most important things about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater as a series, and it is something that no one ever talks about, and it is just as important, if not more important, in the modern era. Because if you're streaming this game, you have to turn on streamer mode, which turns off the licensed music. Tony Hawk's 1+2 does this really weird where there's no music at all. If you put on streamer mode, it's silent apart from the sounds of the game. Now, the
Yeah,
sounds of the
I've done
game,
that. I've been victim to this one as well, where all you
yeah,
then have to do is like the in-game sounds are phenomenal, and everything is like, you can hear the wheels like scuff.
yeah,
You can hear the grinds. You can get, then everything is like the bam, wham. You get loads of
I
that,
love
which I
those.
think all that kind of buzz stuff is great. Then you get that stupid bloody glitch sound when you fall off a half pipe, and then
Yeah.
the run.
Oh,
That's the run killer, because it doesn't just forward momentum you into the restart. You then start dead.
yeah, yeah. The sound effects in this game are
So good.
are a major part of what makes this game so addictive. Every time you do a special move, it's a big bam. But that sound triggers something in my mind. It is like endorphins or something because I want to hear it.
All
And
the
if
time.
all the time, I want to hear it. I want to hear that meow sound. And it's just so addictive. There's just the whole game is like it should be an illegal drug. How addictive Tony Hawk's is. It should be illegal because it is dangerously addictive. Everything just stacks upon itself of how what makes this game addictive. The control scheme being perfect, being what's going to happen when you hit that controller, makes it so
Oh
predictable
yeah.
and so reliable. The sound effects all build in this endorphin release. The levels being so expertly designed and crafted and laid out adds to it. The music adds to it. The 2-minute timer makes sure that you're not overstaying your welcome at any level. 2 minutes are up. You want to change level. But all this just compounds into
Oh, it
this
all
game.
adds up together.
It's
Yeah.
one of the most addictive games I've ever played in my life.
Like it's a funny thing though, because we talk about music and how important it is in like movies and TV and games and stuff. Like Ghost Guy talked about this slightly in our Phasmo Game of the Month episode. Check it out because it's bloody excellent. When you, as you say, you put the streamer mode on, you can't play the licensed music as well, so you have to play in silence. You don't half miss it, even though the game is so well balanced in the audio that it's always just in the background. And obviously, like the in-game sounds, like your grinding, your falling, your ka-chows, your wicka wickas, and all that kind of stuff are all happening over the top. That not having music just as background noise, you do feel a bit of a void in it, and
Oh no,
you
100%,
fully
100%.
long for it,
Yeah,
which is why
I
I
would
won't stream it.
as important as all those like sounds are, they are the seasoning in the Tony Hawk soup. They just make something really good extra special.
Yeah.
The music is the real star of the show when it comes to the sound effects in this game. Tony Hawk's 3+4 has fixed that. So you can turn on streamer mode, which will turn off the licensed music in order to protect you from monetization on YouTube and stuff like that, which is really useful and required. But when you put on streamer mode, you have the option of putting on license-free music. Now, the license-free music has no lyrics, and it's of the theme of the game. It fits really well. Is it as good as the music? No.
Oh, definitely not. It'll never be.
Does it fill the void left by Tony Hawk 1+2? Absolutely, it does. It's a much, much, much better solution than what Tony Hawk's 1+2 did.
It sounds like a nicer experience as well, because, as you say, just skating to nothing but your thoughts and non-diegetic. I'm using my fancy media terms here. All your non-diegetic sounds. Yeah, you want something that feels like it's part of the environment, and the soundtrack genuinely feels like it's part of the environment.
Yeah,
because it's
absolutely.
even the silly bits where you're hitting tricks and combos and stuff like that, and if you drop, the music cuts.
Yeah,
and like silly things like that, and it's only until like you're talking about it now and you go, actually, that's a really, really great. Like, you've killed the momentum, so the music's gonna record scratch to a halt. And
Yeah.
then when you pick up, you can hear the record go, and then it'll pick up where it went
Where
to.
it left off.
Like, just silly things like that. You can tell that they've really thought the sound design on this is stunning.
Yeah, it strikes me that I'm glad you brought that up because I totally forgot about that. That strikes me as like trying to capture that skate park vibe, the IRL skate park vibe, where in the 90s, for those who weren't alive, we didn't have iPods. No one walked around with headphones on. We all walked around with oversized ghetto blaster radios. And we would go to an area. This is not true. This happened in America. Over here, we all had earphones and walked around with Walkmans.
Walkman stuffed into a pocket that didn't fit.
But skater culture of the time in America did have huge stereos, the shoulder
The big boom
stereos,
boxes, yeah.
and they would go in, and that music cutting off to me feels like in real life, if someone has a big old Beal, the person sitting beside the radio would stop it and go, "Are you okay, mate?" And then, continue. Let's go.
Okay, good.
But no, it's just there's something about this game. Everything just compounds upon itself to make it just it's just a pure video game. It is. There's not much wrong with Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1+2 at all. At all. It has a real sense of humor. It controls brilliantly. It plays beautifully. It sounds amazing. It's just one more go, one more go, one more go.
Oh yeah, that's it. Always the way. It's just one run will do, but then equally on the other side it's one run, and you can just. It never is one run, but you have the option to just do one run.
Yeah. I mean, I think, is there anything you would specifically want to talk about here with Tony Hawk's?
I think, now that you've asked that question, I was going to say no. I think we should get to like maybe some of our like viewer listener call outs. But
we do have a few.
I think it's time to tell my little Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 story, my OG Tony Hawk 2 story. So I'm going to, before I tell you the full story, I have to give you the prelude as such. So I talked earlier about my cousin had his PlayStation 1. He had all the Tony Hawks as and when they came out. When he came to visit, bring that over and we'd all just play Tony Hawk. We all holidayed in Ireland for a brave period of time in our youth, so that I can track this to like the summer of 2001. We all stayed in Cork. We all stayed in this big like townhouse, like 4 or 5 floors. While we were in the house, I need to tell you this part of the story first because it's key to what happened next. We all decided to play a big game of hide and seek while we all figured out what was going on in this house. So my cousin, shout out to Dan, hid himself away above the wardrobe. And we couldn't find him and he won. That was all well and good. Now, the next round, our good friend of the podcast, Andy Games, decided he would take something very similar to this and decided rather than hide somewhere in, easy access, he decided to move an entire wardrobe. The wardrobe subsequently fell over. Everyone all heard this big crash, and by the time we all came into the room, Andy's trying to like push this wardrobe back up to level surface. So that all happened. Everything was all grand and perfect. So we booted up Tony Hawk 2. We're all playing Tony Hawk 2, and then my cousin Dan goes, "How about we play Horse?"
Yep.
Little did I know at the time, Horse also has a custom word mode.
It does, yeah.
So little did I know he had already prepped the word. So he goes, and then Dan goes, "Andy, do you want to play?" And he goes, "Okay, fine. Yeah, that's fine." So does the trick. Andy goes to reciprocate, fails. First letter, W.
Yes, I remember doing this exact thing.
Second trick, Andy reciprocates, fails. Second letter, A. It's not so bad that he had to live this trauma of a wardrobe falling over on him. He also had to relive the trauma of failing in Horse. And not only did it not spell horse, he had to live it all out until it spelled out wardrobe. So shout out to Andy Games for one of my favoriteest gaming memories. And even more shout out to him because he could have rage quit. He could have threw a strop and just left. He saw it through. He fully spelled out the entirety of the word wardrobe. And that wouldn't have happened without our good friend, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2.
Andy's tenacity knows no bounds. Even as a child, he was tenacious, but he's tenacious in this podcast as well. He's been on 3 times, lost 3 times. You know, that's
Like
tenacity.
it just,
Shout out to Andy Games on the Shore 94.
I fully had to text my cousin and be all like, it was Tony Hawk 2, wasn't it? I don't want this to be like in the timeline and then suddenly someone calls me out and goes, well, actually, Tony Hawk 3 was the game. Yeah, exactly. So like the research I done into getting this, making sure this story was right.
Yeah, you could change the words in Tony Hawk 2.
This is gaming journalism at its peak. So I figured I had to get that story, and that story has been building for like 25 years.
Oh, that's amazing. So it is.
And who'd have thought it would come? Who'd have thought it'd be the best time ever on our little podcast to divulge one of Andy's worst childhood memories?
Yeah. Right. All that remains for us to do when it comes to Tony Hawk Pro Skateboarder is put it on the patented high scores, high stakes tier list. S tier to D tier. Where are you putting it?
It was going to sit as an A tier. But that story, man. I lived it. I was there.
It wasn't even Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2.
Like, that's resonated all the way through. And again, like, I had A tier locked in. I thought like I missed it at the start, and I'm kind of coming into like the new era of it. But as we've talked, like it just has everything. Like it's such a perfect game. It's exactly it. It's a game. There's no need for this hard hitting narrative. Like it's so throwaway. It's so replayable. It's exactly what the PlayStation exists for. So it's an S tier.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. It's an S tier. Like, there's no doubt in my mind it's an S tier. It's always been an S tier game. It is just so brilliantly crafted, so brilliantly designed, so brilliantly and lovingly recreated here for a new era of players. It's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 is just fun. It's just perfect. I think it's perfect. I can't fault it for anything. I think it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's just a brilliant game.
I do think in terms of game of the month going forward, we need to start reviewing pants games because we're playing a lot of games, and over the last 18 months of this, we have done a lot of games that people should play and we love and we adore. We need to start doing games that are absolute stinkers and should tell people to avoid at all costs. I think we need to start finding a little bit of balance in some of these games going forward.
I mean, I agree. I mean, the whole point of Game of the Month Club is it's a game we have to play for the month, so we don't want to play a stinker.
That's it. That is very true.
but this is a good point. Anyone out there wants to nominate some games for Game of the Month, stick them in the comments or reach out to us on social media and all that sort of good stuff. But speaking of getting in touch, let's get to the wrap-up section because we did put out a few social media posts of people to tell us their thoughts and feelings and all that sort of good stuff. And we'll get to that in the next section. Let's get there now. And that is it, Tomahawk. Another Game of the Month episode all wrapped up. Let's talk about the community, because we always bang on about the community. We've been finding some ways in order to get the community involved with the podcast as well. So I know I put out a few things on Twitter just to try to get some feedback. We did get some feedback. I basically just asked what's everyone's thoughts and feelings on Tony Hawk Pro Skater as a series as a whole. And we got a couple of replies. The two I'm going to read out. One of them is from really, really, really good friend of the pod, Parzival. And he's told us a story here, and it rivals the story of Andy. So he says,
let's hear it.
He says, Tony Hawk Pro Skater are great games. It made us all think we could jump on a skateboard and do these tricks in real life. This is the reason I have a crown in my front tooth. Teeth and front paths do not make good combinations. And then it's a tooth emoji and a laughing emoji. I think that's a great story because Tony Hawk Pro Skater made me go out and buy a skateboard.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time on skateboard. I still have all my teeth, Parzival. So that's 1-0 to love it. I'm on top of that leaderboard. But it made me pick up a skateboard. It influenced me in a lot of ways. And I think I've said this before. There's a generation of people roughly my age and younger who have been influenced in a lot of ways from Tony Hawk's Pro Skateboarder as a franchise. It's just culturally relevant. There's not many games that can say that. We are a cultural cornerstone. Tony Hawk Pro Skater is. And then Mighty Ryan also got in contact with us. This one's funny. So he's like, no words, only Spotify link. And his Spotify link was for CKY96 Bitter Little Beans, which wasn't in Tony Hawk's 1 or 2. It was in Tony Hawk's 3. But I think what he was trying to say there, without saying it, was the soundtrack to these games is
Oh, yeah.
absolutely incredible. We've spent a lot of time talking about the soundtrack. Ryan, the mighty Ryan, check him out
Shout
on
out.
twitch.tv. Mighty Ryan, you are absolutely right. The soundtrack to these games is incredible. How about you, Tomo? Did you get any replies on
I
your side?
did. I got one reply on Instagram from our good friend at Gamerfest, Brian Dooley. Shout out to Gamerfest.
Okay.
So when we first announced that we were doing Tony Hawk Pro Skater, he replied, epic. And I think that pretty much surmises the not even just 1 and plus 2, the franchise as a whole. We've had a few kind of stinkers towards the end. Like there's the whole thing about Underground, which we've never even touched on. 1, 2, 3, 4, just kind of goated games, really. So I mean, a 1-word review is hit the nail on the head, to be honest.
Oh, absolutely right. This is a legendary game series, and epic is one word you could use to describe it. There's many more, but yeah, that one's upper. Yeah, thank you very much for that, Brian. Shout out to Gamerfest, by the way. Check it out, gamerfest.ie. It is Ireland's biggest gaming convention, and it's really good. You should check it out.
It is really good.
But I think that's really us. This is usually the point of the podcast where we tell them what next month's game of the month is. But I think as of right this moment in time, it's TBC.
No, we do have it.
What is it?
Well, I'm going to pull the veil back a little bit. Sword of the Sea drops on the 3rd of August. Right. So to celebrate our Journey 2.0, we're going to be spending the month of August playing Sword of the Sea. Finally, I've waited about 3 years for this game to be released. So that will be our August game of the month. And I imagine it's going to be a little bit of an emotional one again, if Journey was anything to go by.
I don't know if I have another one in there. But we have to space these out a few years. The last thing we need is people crying as they listen to it.
Well, this one is a day 1 release on PlayStation Plus. So I think this is just a lovely stars aligned kind of moment here. I figured if we don't jump on this now, get it while it's relevant, I think it'll be a lovely little hot take on this game, which I'm so excited for.
We are making a habit of this, talking about and playing relevant games. That's 3 in 3 months. That is FBC Firebreak
rematch on our multiplayer series as well, and then Sword of the Sea is going to be game of the month. Like, I can't wait. I've been so excited for Sword of the Sea. I just remember that first reveal trailer, and I remember we talked about it in a side quest series 2 years ago. Really,
2 years ago, yeah.
I've just been waiting forever and a day for this, and then when they said it's happening and it's day 1 PlayStation Plus, I was like, Mamma Mia.
Yeah. And with all that being said, then there is very little for me to say. Just to recap, just the housekeeping. If you want more content from us everywhere we are on the internet, just go to highscoreshighstakes.com. It has been refurbished. It has been relaunched. Website 2.0 is a go-go. So highscoreshighstakes.com. You'll see little links. Just click them, follow us, subscribe. If you're listening to us on Spotify, you haven't yet subscribed, left a review, or give us a star rating, please do that. 1 to 5 stars, where we think we're worth. You want to give us a written review, please do that. If you're listening anywhere else that has a review system, please review us. Give us a written review, because on the landing page of the new website, we are taking reviews and highlighting them there. So if you want your name up in lights in highscoreshighstakes.com, leave us a review and we'll put it up there. As long as it's positive.
Etched if it's in negative, High Scores lore, that's what it'll be. So yeah, it's much appreciated. It helps with the visibility as well. Everyone loves a good 100%. Written review as well. Like stars and numbers are all really good, but it's the written word is what helps us.
But
Ironically on an audio platform.
They need written words with keywords and all this here business. SEO, yay, let's go. And that's really it. There was something I wanted to say, but I can't remember now. Yes, if you want to support the podcast, absolutely no pressure, but there is a fourth wall. For that, the link on that is on the website. And if you want to support us, the best way of supporting us is by sharing the podcast with people who you think will like it. That is how you support us, and it costs nothing. So please hit that share button and send it to someone who you think might like it. Let's get more eyes and ears in the podcast. And with all that being said, I have nothing left to say or do except indie kickflip into I've been Mr. Lava Lava. This has been High Scores, High Stakes, Game of the Month Club. Thanks for
Oh,
watching.
amazing.
We'll see you next month. Love you all. Bye.
Bye.